Good morning, my loves. How are you this Friday morning? Um, I'm very excited to share the testimony for today, and it's going to be off Psalm 139. And of course, my testimony, before I get into the word, it's about my little love story. Um, Obviously, it's my love story with God, but it's how me and my husband met, and how God orchestrated all this goodness and this amazing little love story. And I know each one of you has your own, and I just wanted to share mine today. So before I get started, I want to read in Psalm 139 because there's a couple of verses that go along with my testimony. So it starts off saying, "Oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue. But behold, O Lord, you know it altogether." I'm going to stop right there for now. And I want to just dwell a little bit on the first verse. It says, "Oh Lord, you have searched me and known me." Have you ever thought like God just talking to you and being like, "It's okay, daughter, son, even if you don't know me that well, I know you." And I love how the scripture says, "Oh Lord, you have searched me." You literally searched me. You search me. You look really deep within. You search me, every inch of my body, every inch of my mind, every inch of my heart, deep down, and know me. You know me. God knows you. God knows me. And this is why I wanted to share the story, because when I was little, it happens to all girls. We live in this, we see all these Disney movies and these character movies of the Cinderella and the Little Mermaid and whatnot, and Beauty and the Beast, and we're all into these, when we're little, into these little, romance, enchanting the prince, having a Prince Charming and whatnot. It's part of our essence, in our innocence as a child, as a little girl. But I was seeing here how lovely, how God delights. He delights in watching his children, and you know what? In play and thinking, oh, they want, in his daughter's scene, oh, they want their Prince Charming, oh, and you know what? If you really think about it, God has a love story for everyone. For you, he had one for me, and it's just beautiful. It doesn't matter, like, the harshness of what you went through. There's always a love story. God is love, and he always wants to show to you, hey, I got a love story for you too. You're not forgotten. And you know what? He showed me that. You're not forgotten, Julia. I have a love story for you too. And let me tell you a little bit about me when I was young. Even though I know it's to boast about the Lord, but so you can get a hands-on. So I was always a very shy, introvert girl. Super shy, super shy. First of all, because I didn't even know English. I only was brought up learning Spanish. And so when I got into school, I didn't know any English. I didn't really have any friends. But my teacher, my elementary teacher, never forget her, super sweet, Miss Cortez. Sweet, 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 sweetheart. And if it wasn't because of her, I probably wouldn't even survive pre-K. But anyways, as time went on, I was always very shy, very introverted. With my family, I was open and funny and goofy and whatnot. But with at school, I was just very shy. And so, but of course, I always wanted that Prince Charming. I always thought, how's my husband gonna be? And so as time went on and I grew, I had a little crush on little guy, on little boys or whatever. But I always told myself, God, when I show my parents who my husband is, or the person I want to marry, like I really, it was really deep in my heart. I wanted my parents to love him, and I wanted my grandpa. For some reason, I just wanted my grandfather's acceptance, and so I was just like, I want them to to like him. It really meant a lot for me. But anyways, and as as I started growing up, I started seeing like, man, like, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be real. I was like a little tomboy. Like in middle school, so I would dress like in silver tab jeans and big t-shirts and tannies and whatnot. And I wasn't all that attractive, you know. My husband loves him, by the way, but I really didn't see myself as that attractive. And I saw these pretty girls in freshman year, and I was like, oh, wow, like that's not me. I wasn't girly. I wasn't always carrying the purse. Till this day, I'm not even a big purse person. I'm like backpacks, satchels, whatever. And but it was just, I was like, am I gonna miss the boat? Am I gonna miss the train? But I didn't. I did. God had mercy on me. Let's just put it that way. He's like, all right, this girl, she, you know, let me make her a man. Let me make her a man. And so, anyways, I even at one point in my life, it was funny in middle school. I even thought like, man, all the good guys are taken. Like they all got girlfriends. But and being honest, being real, when I was in middle school, I had a lot of acne, and like I said, I wasn't all that, all that cute. But anyway, so I didn't know. I didn't realize that all that time God knew my heart, and God was orchestrating. He was orchestrating my love story, and He had a special someone for me. And so, I always wanted to know about God. I always wanted to know, like, how do I go to heaven? How do I get saved? What do I do? I didn't know. So I would ask God, but then I'm just like, and I'll try to read the word, but it was like the English was kind of hard, and it was like thou shalt not, whatever. So it was really hard for me to understand. So I would kind of just, throw, like, let it go for a while. But it was always in my heart to know God, to seek Him, to know, just how I just wanted to be with Him. How do I be with Him forever? Eternity. So, but at all this time, I didn't realize God was searching me. He was pursuing me. He was trying to make a love story, and I didn't know. I didn't realize. So, anyways, make a long story short, I wound up moving schools. I always was, since I was little, I was in a school, and then I wound up moving to San Antonio, to a school in San Antonio. And when I go to the school, my thing was always, whenever I meet a guy, at its due time, I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna date anybody from high school, ever. That was my thing, like never gonna do it, because I thought, in the summer they're gonna cheat on me. Mind you, at this point, I didn't know the Lord yet, and these were my own ideas in my head. I was like, no, He's gonna cheat on me in the summer, blah blah blah. So, anyways. So I go to this new school, I'm sophomore year, barely making friends. I don't really have any friends. And then finally in my junior year, we had more friends, and, we're talking and whatnot, as my friend girls and girlfriends. And I have met some guy friends. But just kept it like that because I had this standard in my head. I'm not dating anyone. I'm not dating anyone from high school. But when I was 15, I remember writing a list. I wrote a list down. And I said, Lord, I want a guy. And it was in the middle of the night. I literally was laughing at myself because I was like, God, are you really even listening to me? Do you really even hear me? So I'm writing this list, and I said, okay, I want a guy that's tall. I want a guy that's Hispanic. I want his skin, this color. I want him to be a dark-haired guy, and I want him to be a musician. I want him to know how to play guitar. And I'm literally telling you what I had written down. And then I got into, because you want an attractive person. We're not gonna lie. And so I'm like, and I want him to have this killer jawline and this amazing smile that makes me weak at the knees, like just super, super sweet smile. And I got it. God was like, all right, let me okay, you're writing down, let me take a note of what you're doing. Because you know what? God knows you. He searches you. He wants to know, your desires of your heart. And He showed me that. And I thought that was amazing how it says, you understand my thought afar off. You know my sitting down. You know my rest. You know everything about me, God. And I didn't realize that. And there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it all together. And as I spoke this in my mind and I wrote it down, and I remember sticking it in my Bible, because for some odd reason I thought if you stick it in your Bible, there's some kind of little magic powder that makes it happen. That was just my idea. But anyways, so then I wind up meeting Jerry. I meet him at the end of my junior year, right at the end, like right at the end, like probably like the last day of school or something. And then, so my senior year, because Jerry's about 8.5 months younger than me. So my senior year, give me a second. He, I go to school, first year of school, and I have my best friend. His name's Emmanuel, or Emmanuel, and so I had taken pictures of our last day of junior year, and my husband was in that picture, but I didn't know him yet or nothing, and so I see my best friend the first just going like, yeah, look, and I brought the pictures. Look, these are the last day of school pictures, whatnot, and we're all looking at them, and that's the first time I met Jerry, and my best friend Emmanuel was like, oh, look, this is Jerry, whatever. And then I was like, oh, so we were pointing actually at his brother, my brother-in-law, Edgar, and we're like, oh, yeah, whatever. And he's like, and so I said, he goes, oh, look. So I see Jerry, and I kind of just get introduced to him. He's like, oh, that's my brother. I said, oh, that's your brother. Oh, okay, And it was funny. I'm going to share this with my brother-in-law. I love him to death. But it was hilarious because me and my cousin thought my brother-in-law, I didn't know Jerry at the time, my husband. And we thought my brother-in-law was like really, really cute. We're like, dude, he's really cute. So said, I'm sorry, I'm not hitting on your man. And so anyways, and so when he said, yeah, that's what I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know that was your brother, whatever. So anyways, the days go by, the months go by, and we start hanging out playing soccer with all the guys, a big group of guys and girls from school. And Jerry, my husband, he's going. And so he says that his way that he was like trying to get my attention, like showing me that he was flirting with me or that he was interested was because he would pass me the ball. I'm like, that's what you do in a game. You pass the ball in a game. But anyways, just because I was on his team. But I wasn't even that good, but, And so one day he calls me. He gets my number through my best friend, Emmanuel, and he's like, so we're at home. I think it's like a Saturday or something, and we're getting ready. We're gonna go out, me and my sisters, and so I get a call, and she was like, I don't know, it's some Gerardo, and I'm like, what? Who's this dude? So I answer, and I'm like, yes, and he's he's talking to me in Spanish. Oh, so Gerardo, I play soccer with you, whatever, and mind you, at this point, I'm like, this dude is a stalker, like. How do you get my number? What? And I'm like, how'd you get my number? Yeah, I just like totally cut him off, and he's like, oh, through Emmanuel. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get Emmanuel, and I'm gonna get Emmanuel. He's gonna be sorry. And so, anyways, and so we start talking, and then, we just kind of vaguely talk on the phone. This is like around September, and then finally, like around in November, he calls me again. We're on three-way with my with my best friend, Gabi, and I didn't know she had me on three-way, so she's like, hey, what do you think about this guy, Gerardo or whatever, and I'm like, hey, he's alright, he's cool, whatever. Mind you, he used to wear like those big old Jingo jeans and those polo stripe t-shirts, and I was like, that just wasn't my thing, he used to have his hair kind of long and just kind of slick it all back, and I was like, okay, maybe if he changed his pants, maybe he cut his hair, maybe did a little spiky or whatever. And I'm telling her I was on the phone, not even knowing he's on three-way. And so anyways, we were talking and whatnot. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she finally tells me like, oh, well, he's on the line. Oh, my gosh. I was so embarrassed. But he didn't get mad. We're talking. And I was like, oh, okay. Hey, I just, I'm not trying to, down you. I was just saying that maybe. He's like, oh, no, that's cool. Whatever. In Spanish, mind you, we're talking in Spanish. And then... So anyways, Gabby has to go. We hang up. So he's like, can I call you personally? I'm like, sure, why not? So he calls me, and we're talking, and, oh, okay, so I forgot a big old part of the story. So when I do this list, and I tell the Lord, like, I want a guy like this, and all this, like that, and I want him to look like this, and I want him to play this, and whatnot. At the end, I tell the Lord, give me a sign. I was 15 at the time. And I said, give me a sign that I know who the guy is, the one that you're sending me. And I said, and then I even put, I even put a condition on God, right? I bet you thought it was really silly at the time. God's not surprised. And he says, oh, and I told him, I said, and I want him, the sign God, I want it to be that the first thing that he tells me is about you. I want him to talk to me about you, because if he loves you, he's going to love me. And I want to know about you, God, but I want him to teach me about your word. I said, because sometimes I have a lot of trouble understanding, and I need someone to help me. And, wouldn't it be better it to be my husband? But I told her, like, give me that sign. Like, he got to tell me about you. He has to love you. He has to know who you are, so he can help me. He can teach me. And so I kept that. I kept that. And finally, so when I meet Jerry, whatever, and then I forgot, because I was already like 17 and a half at that time. So, he's talking to me, and that night we're talking, and he's like, and just the night before I talked with Jerry on the phone with my friend, just that night before, I was laying in my bed, and I had heard, like, are you saved? Are you saved? How are you saved? You got to be saved to go to heaven. I'm like, what does saved mean? What is that? So, and then I said, oh, I don't know what that is, Lord. Like, tell me. And I just left it at that. So then Jerry calls me the next day with my friend, and we're talking. And he says, oh, so, we're talking and getting to know each other, whatever. And what we like and things like that. And then he tells me, hey, we're going to hang up. And he said, I want to ask you 2 questions. And I said, okay, yeah, sure, ask me. And he's like, okay. He's like, first question, it's just something I want to know. He's like, and second question, it concerns, it's a little bit more personal, concerns me. And I was like, well, okay. And so we had talked maybe like 2 times before on the phone, but it was like months before. So anyways, I told him, all right, so what is the question, because mind you, we had already been talking for 2 or 3 hours, getting to know each other. And so he says, well, my first question is, I wanted to ask, do you know God? Do you know what it means to be saved? And I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, well, how do you think that, how do you think you're gonna get to heaven? And so I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I guess doing good, being good. I didn't know anything. That's what I really thought. I'm being honest. That's what I always learned. I was a Catholic, and that's what they taught me. And so he's like, okay, that's not a bad answer, And I'm like, all right, he's like, so, so do you, what do you know about God? And I'm like, well, I was like, I know he's a good God. I know he died for me on the cross, and I'm telling him what the little I know of Jesus. He's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then he's like, all right, so, and I go, well, what's the second question? And he's like, oh, I'll just ask you that tomorrow. Don't worry about it, whatever. And I was like, oh, just tell me, And my dad's like, you got to get off the phone. It's too late. So I'm like, well, I got to go. Just tell me, the second question. And he's like, I'll tell you tomorrow at school. Don't worry about it. Like, I'll tell you. And I was like, all right, sure. Whatever. You're going to leave me hanging? No, I'll tell you tomorrow. Cool. So, we hang up. And, he tells me about the Lord. And he tells me about Jesus. And just a little bit about Jesus. And then we had to hang up. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we hang up and go to school the next morning. And I see him in the morning. I'm like, hey, what did you want to tell me, What was that second question? And he's like, well, I do got coffee in there. And it's not fake. Like, I really got coffee. And so I tell him, what is that? What is the new, that second question? And he says, well, he's like, I'll tell you later. I'm like, just tell me, I got to go to class. The bell rang, I got to go to first period or whatever. And so I'm walking up the stairs. I'm halfway up the stairs. And he's like, do you want to be my girlfriend? And I'm like shocked. And I'm looking looking down the stairs because he's at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm like, I'll tell you after school. And I just like run upstairs and I'm like, oh my God, this guy, he wants to be my boyfriend. I don't even know him. And it's just too much for me. And I'm like, and I said I was gonna never date no one in high school, and I'm just like all shaken up. And so, anyways, I go to my class, and my friend's like, "What's going on?" My best friend, I'm like, "Dude, he just asked me out. He wants to be my boyfriend." Like, no, like, I don't even know this dude, and blah 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 blah, whatever. And so, anyways, you know, so I didn't want to see him. I was trying to avoid him through the hallways. I don't want to meet up with him. Like, he don't even know me. Like, I felt all like, invaded. My space was invaded. And so, anyways, so after school, I'm like waiting at the doors, and I see him standing outside by the bus because we both catch the bus, and I'm like, oh no 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 no, I just wait till my bus pulls up, and I'm just gonna like run to my bus. I don't want to see him, and so. The bus pulls up, and I run to him. I was like, "Hey, bye, we'll see you later. Bye, okay, whatever." And I just like run, and he was waiting for me, and I was just like, "Dude, no." And so I get on the bus, ride home. Right when I walk in my door, Jerry comes, and he calls, and I'm like, "Dude, seriously." And so I answer, and we're like talking. I'm like, "Hey, hey, what's up?" And he's like, "So did you think about my question? What did you think? And I was like, and I didn't remember what I had asked God, 2.5 years ago. So I'm just like, you know what? I was like, I'm sorry. It's a no. I don't really know you that well. And, I'm not, And he was like, and he stayed real quiet, like silence filled the phone. And he's like, all right, okay, no, that, and I'm like, are you mad? And he's like, no, just, that's okay. Don't worry about it, He's like, it's all right. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, great, And so, and plus my dad didn't even let me date anybody till I was 18. So, we're talking, and he's like, well, and I kind of say like, okay, like he's probably gonna get mad. He's not gonna want to talk. And he tells me, he's like, you know what? That's okay. He's like, but can we still talk? He's like, because I really feel in my heart that I want to talk to you about God. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I was talking last night with you about, being saved. If you knew, if you knew Jesus, like how to be saved, how to go to heaven and all that. I was like, yeah. Cool. Yeah. We'll talk about that. I'm like that. I interest, God interests me. I want to know. And so we're talking. Seriously, this man told me from Genesis all the way to the New Testament, how about Abraham and all the stories, the biblical stories, and Moses and everything, and how, they'd walk with God and everything, and how it came to be that Jesus had to come, for the sacrificial lamb to die for our sins, and that they would do that in the Old Testament as like symbolically, and they'd kill the best lamb, the first lamb, and how they would shed their blood, and God would forgive the people's sin, and then Jesus finally came and did that for the whole world. And I'm like, what? What? Like, I'm just shocked, And he's like, yeah. He's like, so Jesus died for you, but you know what? He's like, Jesus is alive. I'm like, what? Jesus is alive? I always thought like, okay, he died and that was it, And so he's telling me, he's like, yeah, and I'm very overwhelmed in a good way. He doesn't know I'm crying, and I'm like, oh my God, like God did that for me. He died for me. Like just cause he loves me, just cause he wants to be with me, he don't even need me, But it was just beautiful. Like he even gave his own son for me. I wouldn't even give my own child, And so it was incredible. And he's like, and he's like, if you confess with your mouth, if you confess with your mouth, you shall be saved, and if you believe in your heart. And I was like, yes, I do believe Jesus came to save me. I do believe he died for my sins, because it says the wages of sin is death. Pretty much the payment of sin, the only way you can pay your sin is to die. But you don't gotta die, because Jesus already died for you. He already paid that. His blood paid that. So you already are restored with God. You're in his righteousness now, if you believe, because Jesus already paid for that. Don't dwell on that. Your sins are forgiven. I'm like, whoa, wow. Like, I'm just boom, being bombarded. I'm like, yes, this is beautiful. And so anyways, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And so at this point, and my dad's like, hey, you got to come to dinner. You got to hang up, whatever. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I really got to go, but this is really good. And he, we have been talking for like 3 hours already. He's telling me everything about the Lord. And then boom, right there, that thought comes in my head. And the Lord shows me, hey, this is the guy you told me. He's talking to you about me. And hey, Daddy. And of course, I'm like, yeah, I remember. I told the Lord, like, you know, this is the sign. This is the sign. Oh my gosh, he's talking to me about God. He's showing me, he's teaching me about the Lord. But of course, in my pride, I was like, all right, I already told him no, don't change it. Like, you know, he's gonna know. So, so I kind of just eased it up, and I was like, you know, and then he asked me again. I was like, well, I gotta go. And he tells me, okay, that's okay. You know, we'll talk tomorrow. Is that okay? Can I call you? I'm like, yeah, you can call me. You know, and he's like, and he tells me, by the way, he's like, can I ask you something? I'm like, sure. He's like, I know you said no to my offer about being my girlfriend. He's like, but can you think about it? At least think about it. When you're ready, I'm like, you know what? I said, I'm going to think about it. I said, and I'll tell you the yes. I go, I just want to get to know you. I said no because I don't really know you. I start fixing my story, you know, whatever. And I'm like, I don't really know you that much, but I want to get to know you more. And then I'll tell you when I'm ready, and I'll tell you my yes. And he's like, okay, cool. So finally, you know, this is around November. So he starts inviting me to church. He calls me every day, saying about the Lord. And then he invites me to church. And I start going in December, the whole month of December. I start going to church and everything. And I just fall in love with church. And I fall in love with praise and worship. And met his mom. And she was a praise and worship leader. And, you know, I was just like, oh my gosh, God, you're just amazing. Like, I'm getting to know you. I'm killing two birds with one stone. I met, you know, this super cool guy. And he's showing me about you. I was just like so happy. And then, so in Christmas Eve, he spent Christmas Eve with me, and I told him, hey, you know, I have a gift for you. And he's like, okay. He had got me a gift. It was a little locket, and I was like, oh, this is so sweet. You know, I was all super happy. And then so I said, I have a gift for you too. And he's like, okay. And he's standing there, and, you know, we're outside, and I was like, well, my gift is yes. And he's like, what? And I'm like, it's yes, I want to be your girlfriend. And then he's like, hey, imagine my hubby. He's dramatic in a good way. He's a baller. He cries. He sheds tears, and that's what I like about him. He's very sweet, and he starts crying. He's like, hey, thank you. He gets all teary out there. Don't cry. But yeah, so I told him yes. That was his Christmas present, and we just grew in the Lord together, you know. And now that I go back on it, I'm like, Lord, you're amazing. You're amazing. You orchestrated in just exactly how the Lord, how I asked him. God do it. By the way, he's tall. He has dark hair. He has brown eyes. He's Hispanic because I wanted someone to speak Spanish. He plays guitar. He had a killer bod. Just throwing it out there because he's pretty hot. And killer jawline. But no, mind you, this dude has the sweetest smile. I mean, love his smile, like to the T. Everything on my list, God did. And God even threw in there. And you know, I'm even going to throw in there the little sign you said, you know, which was, if he talks to me about you, you know, that's the guy. And sure enough, God did it. And so, you know, that's my little testimony. And I share it with you because I want you to know that God, all this time, ever since you were born, he has searched you, and he knows you. It says in the same psalm, it says, for you formed my inner parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. And it says in 23 and 24, it says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. But if you think about it, it says, search me, O God, and know my heart. You know what? God knows your heart. It says that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. I was fearfully and wonderfully made. And I remember this testimony that Sharon shared at my church. And she said, you know, when you're born, you know, when you have that daddy waiting anxiously for the baby to come so he can see the baby, you know, or when they bring him from the nursery, he's like, that's God. On your birthday, on your born day, you know, your birthday, he's waiting there like, all right, time for me to put on my batteries and do this and make this little person, this little bitty person fall in love with me. That's God. And all this walk and all this life as you go through, all he's wanting you to know is like, hey, there's a love story. I have a love story with you. I'm your father, and I want to show you that there's a love story. I created a love story with you, with every individual person, with me. He showed me this was my little love story that he would share with you. So I encourage you, analyze, sit down and analyze. What is my love story with God? Ask God, reveal to me, Lord, the love story that all these years since I've been born, you've been orchestrating. Show me. Show me that love story. And he will reveal it to you. He will, because he wants you to know that he's pursuing you all this time. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Height, depth, sin, death, anything. It can never separate you from God's love. Nothing, nothing. And so I encourage you to ask God today. And I want you to think about it this weekend and all next weekend. I want you to be blessed and know that God loves you. God's for you. He's not against you. But you know what? God's a good, good father. And he has that love story. He's orchestrating for you. Just look a little outside the box. Look a little deeper. And see, you will discover that love story he's been doing all these years with you. All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. God bless. And until next week, you have a good one.